Absolutely. You know what? And it's always exciting. It's always that second season. It's like everything, like you're starting over. And that's, I think, how you look at it. It's almost like the beginning of the season again, because everybody's 0-0. So, but always, again, it's these games now. I mean, there's always a little bit of pressure, a little bit of stress the first round, both teams. And you just play it one game at a time. Honestly, it's one period at a time and one game at a time. Don't get ahead of yourself. Just, again, stick with the process. It's probably the best way of putting it as far as, going into the playoffs. Well, again, they were all ball games. I mean, when you're 2-2, we lose 1-0, 2-0. They got an open net, but we lose 1-0. We give up a goal, a minute and a half left. First night in Marquette. We win the second night. We responded well. Game one here, we won 4-1. Played very well. Next night, again, they play with a lot of desperation. They win by a couple goals. So they were kind of like mirror images of each other. Kind of the two series. Well, they're playing the way they're capable of. This team is maybe the most talented team for sure up front. Maybe the most talented team in our league. Again, they're a team that I picked second place in the preseason, so they've got a lot of octane, and they're feeling it. They're dialed in, whatever you want to call it. But the last 2 weekends, especially that weekend against Ferris State at home, I mean, it was a breakthrough weekend for them. And before that, it was just kind of a lot of splits, and again, they were feeling it. They were dialed in, and it was 16 goals, 17 goals, whatever it was right there. It's a lot of goals over the course of one weekend. So, we're very cognizant of who we're playing. That's for sure. Well, again, it's just like I said, it's a new season. It's a new season, and your mindset has to be a little different too. And a few things have, like we talked. Every play matters. Like, it's one thing. Sports are. There's always a lot of mistakes in sports. Hockey, there's a lot of mistakes. You got to minimize your mistakes. And, obviously mistakes can be magnified, and all it takes is one, because we all know the small margin of error. I don't think there's a sport around that has, probably the margin of error is probably, the smallest margin of error is probably in our sport over any other sport. And again, like I always say, especially when you play a game where typically the first team to three wins. Oh, I don't know if it's the same for everybody, so I always don't really get wrapped up in all that stuff. But your mindset just has to be different, because I think I said it right at the beginning of this interview. You take it one period at a time, and that's what you have to do, one game at a time. Because again, somebody's going to be done after this weekend. Somebody's going to move on. So that's where we're at right now. And then after this weekend, it's one and done. So it's just an interesting mindset. But you have to wrap your head around it too. It's different. Like, you can't. There's no next week. That's probably the best way of putting it. There's no next week. So you're totally living in the moment right now. You're totally living in the moment. You got to play in the moment. No, we're banged up a little bit, but that nobody cares. Nobody feels sorry for us. So it's not. I never talk about injuries. I don't like talking about injuries, because at the end of the day, I think it's a cop-out when people talk about it, and we just move on. Whatever you have on the bench, you play with, and you play your tails off. So we got a couple guys out, and we were banged up last weekend. But again, this is a new weekend, and it's playoffs, and it's exciting. So everybody's got injuries. That's why to talk about it is really probably doesn't. It doesn't hold a lot of weight, because everybody has issues. Everybody's got guys that either are injured or are out. So that's this time of year. It's 6 months into it. It's a lot different. The road's a lot different than at home, 100%. I mean, there's obviously a lot more planning and a lot more preparing. You got to get hotels. You got to get meals. You got to get practice times. You got to travel. You got to make sure you monitor your practices. You got to monitor your lifting. It's fatiguing going on the road. So there's a lot more preparation and planning going on the road than there is at home. So it's probably the biggest difference.
I feel like a lot, but at the same time, it always comes down to playoff. It's the same thing. You have to be ready to put all your body and all your emotion out there. Can't leave anything up to chance now, and it's just being down to every other, like Tech and Mankato being down there and being at home. It's been experience, and it's for us leaders to get that to the sophomores and freshmen to really buy into it and be ready from the start on Friday. And it's going to be a long weekend, so you just have to be ready. That's what I feel like the most. To just get them mentally ready, like every day now, talk to them every day, see what their pulse is like and what we need to do. I feel like it's on us as leaders and Tom, of course, but at the end of the day, they have to be ready, and we know we can do it. We've been doing it all year against the big teams, and we have seen it a lot of times that we can play playoff hockey when we want to, and we just have to want it this weekend.